Welcome to Storytime. Get ready, navigate for quick wisdom of countless stories. Let's dive into the world of knowledge together and explore. Story, Waiting, written by Ha Jin. Summary of the story Waiting. The main character of Ha Jin's Waiting is Lin Kong, an army physician in China in the 1960s. The story shows Lin's conflict between duty and desire as he controls an unhappy marriage and longs for a satisfying relationship with Manna Wu, the nurse that he loves. Lin, locked in a planned marriage with the loyal but simple Shuyu, tries for years to get a divorce but runs against restrictions. Even though he has a strong bond with Manna, social and cultural norms prevent them from being together. The story explores themes of duty, tradition, and the sacrifices required by social conventions. The novel shows the enduring power of love, the complexity of relationships, and the human need for mental satisfaction while Lin waits for the procedures to allow his divorce. With the context of a China that is changing quickly, Ha Jin deftly shows people battling their own goals against the iron constraints of society expectations. The battle that Lin Kong faces on the inside is an example of the struggle between tradition and happiness. His devotion to duty and respect for social norms reveal the awful tension that results from selling oneself in order to fit in. In the meantime, Manna Wu challenges social norms that stand in the way of her search for happiness and love by reflecting the struggle for individuality and self-determination. Ha Jin expertly stitches together a tapestry of feelings throughout the story to highlight the complex nature of connections between people and the everlasting impact of love. Time passes painfully as Lin makes his way through the maze-like divorce the government, stressing the difficulty of waiting and its adverse impacts on the human spirit. The narrative conveys a powerful lesson about the human heart's courage, its lasting force of love, and the universal desire for honesty and emotional connection in a society where customs and duty rule. Chapter 1, Fated Bonds. In the sleepy village of Goose Village, Shuyu and Lin Kong found themselves circled by tradition and fate. Their arranged marriage was washed away by the fierce winds of duty, committing them to a life determined by family expectations. Lin, a young army physician, was drawn into a custom-shaped union where his duties overpowered the whispers in his heart. Lin and Shuyu were caught in a web of cultural traditions by the festivities of their union, which resound with the weight of years past. Even while Shuyu's simplicity and steadfast loyalty hit an emotional trigger with Lin, he couldn't help but sense that the obscure connection that generated his spirit was missing. The seeds of longing were carefully down against the backdrop of a tradition-bound culture, suggesting a destiny beyond the call of duty. The fabric of Lin and Shuyu life got interconnected with the threads of society demands as they went through the initial stages of their union. Their marriage was painted on the routines of daily life, every stroke paying respect to custom and the responsibilities that were expected of them. However, in the middle of this tapestry, Lin felt an unspoken longing that appeared to be a desire for a relationship that went beyond the constraints established by their fate. In the midst of the peace of Goose Village, Lin fought the tension between happiness and duty. The little streets were tense, the bright colors of the past clashed with the dull tones of his desires. As he managed the difficulties of his arranged marriage, Lin questioned whether fate had more in store for him than he understood, something that spoke to the true desires of his heart. Even though the unbreakable bonds of fate appeared inflexible, there was a light of hope dancing on the tip of the timeline, a different route just waiting to be discovered. Chapter 2, Whispers of Longing. Lin Kong took comfort from the brief times he spent with Manna Wu, a nurse whose presence sparked a dormant fire within him, in the quiet corridors of the army hospital, among the smell of cleanliness and the bustle of everyday activities. Even though their relationships had been concealed by formalities, they had depth that went beyond the surface level of their roles. Lin felt a need that boiled her soul, and a glance or a shared smile became the silent language of an unspoken relationship. Lin began to hear the whispers of longing more loudly as the days mixed together. Even with his emotions twisted up in duty, he felt the pull that was bringing Manna closer to him. He saw in her a mirror of his own goals, a fellow journey facing the restrictions of a culture that shut down their dreams. But amid the whispering chats and sly looks, a cloud of cultural norms hovered, throwing a shadow over the feelings that were beginning to emerge but dared to do so in person. Lin's interactions with Manna Wu turned into the covert haven where his heart was comforted. Their conversations showed an emotional depth that went beyond the limits of their situations, even if they were limited by the demands of their professional roles. Every minute that passed with Manna turned into a cache of unsaid feelings that spoke deeply inside Lin's spirit and fired her desire for a love free from social pressures. Lin found himself involved in a confusing web of conflicting emotions as the days passed. The voices of his heart's desires clashed with the echoes of duty, leaving him confused between the need to be faithful to his family and Manna's attraction. Their growing relationship was like a breath of fresh air in the dry soil of his forced marriage. Love took root there, clothed in the covering that society required. Chapter 3: Forbidden Yearnings. The forbidden desires in Lin Kong upset like a stormy sea, creating feelings that went against custom. His heart, bound by duty but discomfort for freedom, looked for comfort in moments he had stolen from Manna Wu. Their private meetings turned into a safe haven where unspoken feelings could dance in the shadows away from prying eyes and the attention of traditional society. The forbidden nature of their developing love put a delightful yet difficult shadow over Lin's conscience as their relationship grew. The attraction that developed between them overcame the norms of society that governed their life and created a flame that suggested a love free from planned limits. But tradition pulled heavily, making it seem doubtful that their emotions might ever be revealed in the future. The subdued protest against a culture that focused on conformity to the status order was whispered in their yearnings. The forbidden desires between Lin and Manna carved a covert route through the stiff framework of societal norms with each look and personal moment. Their silent bond, pulled down by impossibility, ended up standing as a memorial to the human spirit's rejection of social norms. They were left in a delicate dance between desire and social norms that threatened to crush their growing connection as their bond grew and their longing for a love free from social boundaries rose. Even though they were hidden from the outside world, Lin and Manna's secret desires pulsed with obvious power. During their peaceful times together, the lines between responsibility and desire were less clear, creating a picture of feelings that were freedom by their situation. With the growing bond between them, Lin's heart became more and more divided as always between the love that called from the shadows and the duty that was asked of him. Their covert relationship served as proof of the human heart's strength and desire for a love free from social norms. Chapter 4: Tangled Threads. Lin Kong had to make his way through a complex maze of bureaucratic red tape in order to secure a divorce. The court processes were like joined strands that shut down his way out of an increasingly uncomfortable arranged marriage. The complex network of administrative red tape appeared to convey the complicated nature of his feelings, ambiguously combining duty and desire. For Lin, every bureaucratic delay was a maze in her already complex story. He was painfully informed of the entanglements that bound him to a marriage devoid of the passionate connection he wanted by the process, which was tangled down in rules and delays. Lin's desires and societal duties were more and more linked as he battled to sort through the bureaucratic thicket. The complexities of the system matched Lin's inner complex. Every document and official stamp felt like another layer of complexity added to an already complex situation. There was conflict between the legal system's orderly structure and his soul's chaotic wants as his desire for freedom clashed with bureaucratic solidity. The more he dug into the bureaucratic maze, the more his feelings connected, creating a tapestry of conflicting needs and public duties. The complex formalities looked to be intended to reflect Lin's inner maze. Every bureaucratic barrier he experienced was a reflection of the internal challenges he faced, the constraints enforced by duty and societal norms that complicated his pursuit of personal satisfaction. In the midst of the administrative maze, Lin battled not only with paperwork but also with the complex relationship between what he wanted and the social norms that confined him, creating a knot that showed up harder and harder to undo. Chapter 5: Echoes of Tradition. Lin Kong lived a life reflecting cultural expectations against the timeless customs of Goose Village. The weight of centuries-old actions threw a shadow over his desire for personal happiness, tying his fate with the societal standards that traveled his choices. Tradition's reverberations, infecting every aspect of his life, affected his decisions and constrained his heart's developing desires. The continually traditions that controlled Goose Village bound together the norms that formed Lin's universe. They left little room for achievement of personal objectives as they enforced their opinions about the importance of respect and the value of family relationships. Lin battled with the ghosts of the past, tradition's weight working as a powerful force against the winds of change, caught up in a difficult dance between respecting the practices of the past and giving in to the wishes of the present. The borders of social norms were shaped by the echo of tradition that dominated every facet of daily life in the peaceful grounds of Goose Village. Lin Kong was caught up in this complex web of traditions and rules, where his life's path was set by his respect for the past. His marriage, his goals, and the hidden signals that boiled under the surface and gradually challenged the status quo were all shaped by the unshakable hold of these shadows. Lin heard the whispers of his heart's longing mixed with respect for old customs as he made his way through the echo of tradition. The options that defined his life and the village routes communicated the importance of expectations from previous generations. Lin fought to find his own voice in the loud song of social standards, caught between the shadows of tradition and the peaceful disobedience of his signals. Chapter 6, Flickering Hopes. In the linked lives of Lin Kong and Manna Wu, flashes of confidence are covered under the shadows of duty and social limitations. In the dark world of their forbidden affection, their looks back and forth and their secret conversations evolved into rays of hope. Their planned lives provided a backdrop against which a flame of promise could be lit by each fleeting instant, full with empty promises. Lin caught a vision of a future free from the constraints of duty in the fleeting sparks of shared smiles and sensitive gestures. The decreasing hopes, frail but strong, showed a road crowded with hurdles but full of promise for a love freed from social limitations. These short but joyful moments gave them new life, a respite from the crushing burden of tradition and a window into a world in which their love could blossom. These fading hopes, among constraints of society, brought light to the otherwise dark corridors of Lin and Manna's lives. Even though their time together was brief, it created a canvas of possibilities where their hearts' cries could be heard above the social pressures that tried to stifle them. Their dreams of a life freed from the bonds of custom gained speed with every look of gaze and silent return, giving their spirits a fresh sense of direction and a mouth-watering peek of what may be. But in the middle of these fading hopes, the brutal reality of their situation hung in the background like shadows. Their objectives appeared to be impossible due to the weight of accountability and the societal effects of their attachment. Their happiness waned as social pressures cast a shadow over their happy times, leaving them torn between the exhilaration of growing love and the depressing awareness of the difficulties that lay ahead. Chapter 7, The Weight of Waiting. Time turned into a terrible force that bore heavily on Lin Kong's shoulders while he felt the painful burden of waiting. Every day he was haunted by the bureaucratic complexities that stretched his search for freedom from an unhappy marriage. Time, his once helpful friend, became a harsh enemy, stretching hours into forever and increasing the psychological impact of his long wait. The administrative challenges appeared impossible to solve, with every delay adding an important weight to the already huge burden. The hours went into days, days into months, and months into years while Lin waited for the documents that would allow his divorce. The sound of the clock reflecting his heart's frustrations painted a picture of determination in the face of suffocating administrative slowness. The weight of waiting turned into a silent pain that tried to break him and made the pain of unsatisfied wants even more painful. Lin's standards for a different future seemed to be more and more overshadowed by the weight of waiting. The complexities of regulation had grown to be an endless maze in which each turn caused more delays and frustration. The emotional cost of waiting compromised his once amazing hopes, leaving a weakness that weighed heavily on his soul as time spread into an unending ongoing affair. A painful parallel for Lin's goal's weakness showed up. Time passed ceaselessly in the face of bureaucratic motionlessness. His need for liberation from the suffocating grasp of administrative delays became greater by every day of waiting, which echoed the still sadness of ignored longing. The prospect of a free future seemed more distant, and the weight of waiting bound him to a world where time stood still like an unchangeable chain. Chapter 8, Fractured Loyalties. Lin Kong was caught up in the maze of broken affiliations, caught between following tradition's rules and pursuing his own goals. His devotion to the roles imposed upon him broke down when the love he started to feel for Manna Wu clashed with the duty he had to his family and society. His increased devotion to his own emotional needs conflict with the long-term dedication given to him by previous generations. Lin's internal struggle grew stronger as he resolved his desire to acknowledge his own emotions and respect family relationships. His fractured loyalty were a reflection of his internal conflict, a struggle between his heart's silent protest and his responsibilities set by custom. Lin found himself crossing the dangerous environment of conflicting loyalty, wondering which road held the highest devotion to his spirit, as he was caught between two worlds, both demanding total dedication. Lin's broken loyalty turned into a field of battle where the struggle between his inner desires and society standards burned silently. His conscience was punctured by the weight of tradition and his family's demands for commitment, which served as a reminder of the dignity and responsibility that came with his planned marriage. At the same time, Manna's growing feelings pointed at a different type of dedication, a devotion to his own needs and to the search of true happiness free from social boundaries. The lines between responsibility and personal satisfaction grew unclear as Lin made his way through the web of broken commitments, leaving him emotionally conflicted and in a dangerous position. The boundaries that had previously defined his responsibilities started to fuzzily show the complexity of human commitments and the compromises required by social norms. Lin had to find a more difficult balance between respecting the past and setting the way for a more real future in this conflict between tradition and individual freedom. Chapter 9, A Glimmer of Liberation. Among the maze of paperwork and a clash of opposing feelings, Lin Kong's journey began to show signs of release. There were glimpses of success along the long and difficult separation road, providing an indication of confidence in his search for personal freedom. Every advance, no matter how tiny, seemed like an upset over the cost of tradition and social norms. Even with their ice-covered speed, administrative wheels were turning, giving an appearance that a resolution was about to happen. Lin felt a newfound sense of excitement as the paperwork slowly made its way through the administrative procedures. The light of freedom was beginning to shine clearly. This growing hope whispered promises of a life freed from the constraints of an unhappy marriage, promising that he would be able to accept the love he had always wanted. This glimpse of freedom turned into a beacon in the middle of the bureaucratic maze, pointing Lin in the direction of his start of a new chapter in his life. Lin Kong felt an energy of excitement in his heart as the flicker of freedom brightened. Even though administrative progress was slow, it felt like a huge step towards a future free from the constraints of tradition. The merest whispers of administrative progress aroused a fresh energy in him, lighting the hope that had defied the crushing demands of so much waiting. The idea of discharge became real with each bureaucratic step he crossed, hinting at the likelihood of a life in line with his actual goals. His heart could now find peace in the future, reflected by the burning hopes that had withstood the storms of societal expectations. A possible new chapter that promised the release of his spirit and an awareness of the love he deeply loved was starting to appear with the glimmer of independence. Chapter 10, Eternal Longings. The whispers of forever longings raced through Lin Kong's being in the last chapter of his journey. The first sign of liberty appeared as the bureaucratic maze gave way to his determined pursuit. However, even as he looked forward to his new independence, the timeless desires in his heart rang out proudly and painfully true. His journey's conclusion revealed the enduring power of love in the face of social constraints. Lin was about to have a deep discovery that would serve as a testament to the human spirit's strength and ongoing search for true connection. The bitter victory of a heart that dared to defy practices satisfied all of the longings that accompanied every choice and doubt he had made. There was a heartbreaking reflection of the human search for emotional connection and honesty in the echoes of enduring longings. The story of Lin Kong was above space and time, connecting with the universal desire for love, satisfaction, and the never-ending search of a life that is true to one's innermost ambitions. The echoes of unending longings lasted as this chapter came to an end, leaving an eternal testament to the strength of the human heart. Thus, in the midst of unending yearnings, Lin Kong's journey came to an end. He felt a fresh feeling of release as the burden of tradition eased its hold on him and the bureaucratic complexity disappeared into the past. In the last moments of his life, he accepted the reality that love continued in the depths of the heart, eternalized by the flexibility of the human spirit despite the fact that it was often obstructed by social norms. Guided by the timeless wisdom that true satisfaction lay in accepting the true nature of one's desires and in the lasting ability of love to transcend the confines of societal expectations, Lin moved into the unknown with a heart filled by the lessons of sacrifice, determination, and the search of true love. Thus, to sum up the tale of waiting testament to the unyielding strength of the human heart in its quest for love and genuine fulfillment. Key learnings. Ha Jin's Waiting offers a wealth of profoundly meaningful lessons. First of all, it shows the tension that exists between social norms and unique tastes, putting light on the sacrifices that must be made when tradition and personal honesty conflict. The story shows the lasting impact of love in the face of hardship and shows how the human spirit works its way through the maze of expectations in search of emotional satisfaction. It also shows the difficulties of waiting, demonstrating how time passes and becomes a sad motif that represents the effect that waiting has on the human mind. This shows the importance of perseverance, patience, and following one's goals with unchanging drive despite disappointments. In the end, the story shows the human desire for honesty in a moving way, displaying the resolve of the heart in its quest for love and personal fulfillment amidst societal pressures. Essentially, waiting reflects the universal reality that crossing complex webs of societal expectations is often required in the search for true connection and emotional satisfaction. It serves as a moving reminder of the strength of love in the face of hardship and the human ability to bear with hardship, make hardships, and go on in the search of authenticity. As it shows a determination that dares to seek true pleasure beyond the boundaries of the world, the story offers a profound lesson about the complex nature of choice, duty, and how much influence social customs exert on individual ambitions.
Thanks for tuning in. For more enlightening content and a detailed summary, visit www.mybookssummary.com. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends. Let's inspire and empower each other. Subscribe to our channel and share our videos with your friends and family.